Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. A chemical plant in Sarnia shut down by the province is fighting back, saying they'll be out millions of dollars to restart operations. Plus, the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit is looking at ways to curb teenagers from vaping by cracking down harder on vape shops that sell to underage kids. And those weekend temperatures have stuck around. We check in with some who are trying to beat the heat today. The Sarnia chemical plant shut down by the province is fighting back. The company says the conditions to restart will cost tens of millions of dollars and can't be done safely. CBC's Chris Ensing reports.
INEOS Styrolution is fighting conditions the province requires to restart operations, saying in its appeal that it set emission limits dramatically lower than previously required, that emptying benzene tanks cannot be done safely, and estimates costs to comply could hit $50 million. Earlier this month, Ontario ordered the plant to shut down after people in Amgenong went to hospital and said they were treated for benzene exposure. Chief and Council declared a state of emergency, saying the emissions came from the nearby chemical plant. This plant is where nearby refineries ship their benzene, which INEOS turns into styrene, a key component of plastic used in manufacturing auto parts, medical devices, and electronics. Ontario is ordering INEOS to control emissions for the fourth time in 5 years. The company says this recent order dramatically lowers the benzene concentration limit, saying the previous limits are 6 times higher than this new benchmark. That benchmark comes from a 2023 government report outlining health risks associated with exposure to benzene. INEOS has submitted an alternative plan to reopen, which it says is safer than the province's, but has not made it public. It argues that benzene storage tanks cannot be emptied in a safe manner and is an environmental risk. The company is asking for a hearing on the matter through the Ontario Land Tribunal. The province is reviewing the appeal and says the company must follow the provincial conditions unless otherwise told by the tribunal. Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor.
Alberta RCMP have solved 4 historical homicides dating to the 1970s, linking them to a single man. One of the victims was Melissa Rahoric. The 20-year-old moved to Calgary from Windsor. She was killed in September of 1976. Police now say Gary Allen Sreri was responsible for the deaths. Police say he was a serial killer and repeat sexual offender. They believe he committed violent sexual crimes until his death in an Idaho prison in 2011. He was serving a life sentence. Police say he was a predator who stalked his victims from his vehicle. RCMP say he was a charismatic, opportunistic killer who would often approach his victims with kindness before turning to violence. Police said the DNA evidence recovered from Rahoric's body was analyzed in the 1990s when the technology first became available, but it would be years before a national database was developed. The RCMP believe there may be other victims who have yet to be identified. The Windsor-Essex County Health Unit has issued an alert due to a high number of opioid overdoses in a short period of time. There were 13 reports of fentanyl overdoses in local emergency departments between May 12th and May 18th. The health unit says it's working with its partners to monitor the increase and learn more about the reported cases. Last month, another opioid alert was issued after fentanyl was involved in 14 of the 15 opioid overdoses in a 7-day stretch. Health officials are reminding people to never use these drugs alone and to try small amounts at first. They suggest if you're using drugs with a friend not to use at the exact same time and to avoid mixing substances while also having naloxone ready. The Windsor-Essex County Health Unit is looking for more ways to curb youth vaping. With the province's help, it wants to crack down on those illegally selling. The CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa reports.
Even though it's illegal, vape shops that repeatedly sell products to people younger than 19 don't face any long-term consequences. That's something the local health unit wants to change.
All that we can do at this point in time is proceed with additional charges and escalating charges.
In comparison, if stores that sell tobacco break the rules twice over a 5-year period, which includes selling to minors, they can have their tobacco license suspended for several months. The health unit wants these rules to also apply to vape shops. Yet, in order to do so, it needs the province to make the change. Last year, the health unit says of 332 vape shop inspections, 20 charges were laid related to shops selling to someone younger than 19.
That's very concerning for us. But what it does point to is, a handful of bad actors in terms of store owners in our community that aren't in compliance.
At least one vape shop employee says he doesn't agree.
I say no to any more restrictions. We know right from wrong, and if it's illegal to sell to minors, and that's our intent, we're not going to sell to minors. If I can tell he's a minor right from the get-go, I won't even allow them in the store. I'll ask them to vacate the premises.
He says the shop has been charged once for selling to a minor. It's mandatory for tobacco and vape shops to ID anyone who looks like they're younger than 25. I went to 3 different vape shops in the city today. One of them, there was 4 customers. All of them looked to be younger than 25. None of them were ID'd. A health unit board member and city councillor believes there's ways for the health unit and the city to better partner on this issue.
If you do not respect the law, and you choose to be not in compliance to that law, then you have to deal with the consequences. And the consequences are potentially your license will be revoked.
The health unit plans to send a letter to the province by the end of this week. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
The official start of summer doesn't happen for another month, but it certainly felt like it outside today. Environment Canada has issued a special weather statement for hot and humid conditions across our region. Our video producer Mike Evans caught up with some Windsorites with some particularly hot jobs.
Stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated, is that the secret?
Well, yeah, and then eat fruits and vegetables.
And what are some of the benefits of working outside?
It's my work. That's the benefit.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that you're working on a really good tan right now.
It's too dark. I'm way darker than I should be.
Is there anybody out here that has a hotter job than you?
All of those guys that are in the hole that are actually moving around and doing physical stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty hot. We've had a lot of water, a lot of Gatorade, a lot of shade over here. Thank you to the university and their big tents. We also had some parents bring in some freezies and popsicles and stuff like that to help the kids. Of course, every parent out here is water, 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 shade, shade, shade. That's all we could do.
Oh my goodness, you're sweating, you're moving. It's really got intense heat, and it's the humidity is really what gets you in here. We have 4 ovens, and they turned out at 500 degrees. Sometimes when you're really busy, you kind of crank them up a little bit. And every time you load a pizza, when you land a pizza in the oven, you have to take it out. And when you take it out, you got to sweep the oven, and you're constantly facing the heat directly. And there's no way escaping it.
We have we call it ESU shows up, and he'll set up a rehab station that'll have make sure keep us hydrated with water and Gatorade. We have misting chairs. So we have different precautions to keep guys cool.
What's some of the hottest things you remember from this job? I take it you've been on the job for a very long time at this point.
Yeah, it's been over 20 years, and sometimes you come out and it's actually hotter outside in Windsor than inside the house fires. So keeping hydrated is our biggest thing, making sure that we use the gear that they provide for us, and keeping everybody safe, because if once you do get overheated, it's hard to get cooled down after that.
What a beautiful long weekend we had, and an even nicer Tuesday. Victor Paulo is here now with our weather forecast.
Well, Meg, a special weather statement was issued for the Windsor region because of the warm temperatures which we have been receiving. Now, about those warm temperatures, we're not expecting to see much cooler overnight temperatures until about Wednesday night. Unfortunately, those thunder showers, which are going to be passing by early in the morning on Wednesday, aren't going to be enough to really cut that heat. We're still going to be experiencing a lot more summer-like conditions. Temperatures closer to almost the mid-20s, even closer to almost 30 degrees as we take a look at our 5-day forecast. Now, the cooler nights will be coming to us around Wednesday. Wednesday's the night we're expecting to see temperatures drop from, 20 degrees is what it will be overnight tonight. We're expecting to see drop down closer to the mid-teens, which is a much-needed break after, of course, a hot night that it will be tonight. Now, taking a look at what we're expecting when it comes to that rainfall, a lot of that rain which is passing by will be really coming through in the morning of your Tuesday. And as you get later on into the week for your Thursday and your Friday, you can see that the sky is going to start to clear. And really your Thursday and your Friday will be days where it's going to be a high pressure system over the Windsor region, which means not a lot of cloud cover. So the big thing here is when it comes to the heat, you want to make sure that you have yourself a hat, make sure you're hydrated, and make sure you apply that sunscreen. And a big thing with the temperatures when they do get as warm as they will be, especially with a high pressure system over the Windsor area, is you don't want to leave your pets locked into your cars, as well as for older people who you might have in your family or people who you're traveling with, or even young people as well too. You want to make sure that they're not going to be inside of vehicles with the windows rolled up and unattended. So another thing too you want to make sure is crack open those windows best you can, get that ventilation going, because when it's going to be as hot as it will be tonight and as hot as it will be for the rest of the week, as you do see, not a lot of rain relief by the time we get to Wednesday morning. But taking a look at what we're going to be expecting when it comes to your 5-day forecast, we can see that, well, that overnight Wednesday is going to be 15 degrees, which is different than the 20 degrees that it's going to be tonight. And you can see that trend of the temperatures finally starting to drop by the time you get closer to your weekend. But that Thursday, Friday with that high pressure system will be a hot one. Over to you, Meg.
Thanks for that, Victor. St. Joseph's Catholic High School is growing. The East End School will get an expansion expected to cost about $3.7 million. A student trustee says it's a big moment for him and his classmates.
On a personal note, I hope that with the expansion of St. Joseph's, the lives of so many students can be influenced to become responsible and respectful Canadian citizens.
The project is expected to start next year and have kids in classrooms by 2026. The school is currently using portables to meet the growing population. This expansion will make space for about 200 students. St. Joseph's was designed for 1,100 students. Enrollment is now beyond 1,300.
In our particular school board, at this point in time it is. We have a high percentage utilization rate throughout our school board. So this is an area in the East Riverside area of need. So for this point in time, it's very good news for our Catholic school board.
2 Windsorites put their old broken down car to the test in an event in Michigan recently to race against other lemons. Buckle Up Buckaroo is the vehicle's nickname. And in order to enter the hunk of junk, the car had to cost less than $500.
This race is pretty much, it started about 15 years ago, and it was basically motivated by a group of racers that were racers on a budget. And I believe their motto is something to the likes of, why should only rich idiots get to race? Anybody that wants to get a car for $500 or less, no price limit on safety, but the idea is that you need a lemon. If you have a lemon, then you can race it.
It's a 2006 Chevy Cobalt with a 2.4 automatic. We basically kept it stock, but you strip out the interior, you can take out the side glass. We didn't modify the engine in any way. I think I got it up as fast as it could go down the long straightaway. It was about 80 miles an hour, and then there was a sharp turn, so you had to hit the brakes and turn right. I think we maxed this car out, unless we're not professional race car drivers, but I think we took it to the max. When I first went out on track, I was so nervous, I almost told Mike to take the car, but I went out, and there's a blend line where you got to stay in between these two lines to come out of the first turn, and I crossed it. You're supposed to treat it like it's a wall. Anyway, I came out of it, so I got black flagged. The very first lap of my very first race, I got black flagged, so I had to come in, and they just talk to you and they ask you if you know what you did. And yeah, we did get one of their trophies. We got the Judge's Choice. They liked watching us because we took a very long time on a fuel stop. It took us like 6 minutes to get 5 gallons in the car. But they also liked the fact that we were only a 2-man team, and we were very apologizing, especially when you get a black flag. We're sorry. Just the 4th cylinder, but.
Despite being in a housing crisis, new home construction in Ontario has slowed dramatically. We have that story coming up after the break.
museum.
New home construction in Ontario has slowed dramatically. The latest numbers show fewer housing starts last month than in any April over the past 6 years. Our senior reporter at Queen's Park, Mike Crawley, has the story.
The sights and sounds of new home construction around this province last year. The newest figures for housing starts in Ontario shows there's been a dramatic slowdown, with housing starts down 37% in April from the same month a year ago. The stats show construction began on about 5,600 new homes in the province last month. That's fewer than in any April since 2018. So long ago that Kathleen Wynne's Liberals were still in government.
Sales have fallen dramatically. Starts are falling. Housing supply is going to fall, and it's going to get worse.
So why is the slowdown happening? Interest rates are a key reason, driving down demand from the would-be buyers of new homes and driving up costs for developers.
It's sometimes forgotten that the developers are also having to arrange financing for these large-scale projects, so they have to factor that in as well.
Developers have seen the slowdown in new home sales, they're doing the math, and they're hitting the pause button on new construction. At least 60 condo projects in the GTA are now on hold indefinitely.
Some projects that on the drawing board looked really good may no longer be as viable as they once were.
Scott Anderson says demand is so low that some developers are trying to woo buyers with deals on new homes.
So they're offering things like discounts on the deposits they may have to put in. They may be looking at free parking spots. They may be looking at upgrades.
Forecasts for the months to come offer little reason for optimism that the pace of new construction will pick up.
Housing starts activity going forward over the rest of the year, we expect it to continue to trend down in the province and particularly in the GTA.
None of this helps the Ford government's prospects of hitting its target of 1.5 million new homes. It also shows how the supply of new housing is at the mercy of market forces. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Some good news today on the inflation front. The latest data from Statistics Canada shows the annual rate slowed to 2.7% in April. That's down from 2.9% in March. The numbers show cooling grocery prices offset higher fuel costs last month, and household furnishings, clothing, and footwear saw decline year over year. Canada's annual rate of core inflation has eased for a fourth straight month, raising speculation that the Bank of Canada could cut interest rates as early as June 5th. As the pro-Palestinian encampment continues at the University of Windsor, a campus protest in Oshawa has ended. Students and administrators at Ontario Tech University came to an agreement with the university, saying it will publicly post a report this fall outlining all of its financial holdings in Israel. Ali Chasson has more now from where that encampment is clearing.
Protesters are moving out of campus today, part of an agreement that the group reached with the university, the first such agreement in Canada. For its part, Ontario Tech has committed to an admissions process they call inclusive for Palestinians and similarly displaced students to access education. And it says they'll protect protesters from any retaliatory actions, including penalties, academic or otherwise, for staging the protest in the first place. The main demand, and the demand that's been a constant at campus protests across Canada, has to do with the university divesting from companies that benefit from Israel's actions in Gaza. That comes up in the third stipulation, where the university says, quote, it is not aware of investments in any companies that are benefiting from the current Palestinian humanitarian crisis. They do, however, commit to creating a working group that looks at best practices when it comes to university investments. I spoke with a student organizer who says they attribute their success to being realistic.
It is a smaller university compared to like U of T and McGill and all those. But regardless, we weren't here to see who can, divest the most amount of money. We're here for the principle, right? Moving forward, we want to make sure our institution upholds good values when it comes to, I guess, human life. This was a team effort. Like truly, when the institution and the students come together and they work as a team and not against each other, they will achieve goodness. And we truly hope that this is used as an inspiration, that we are used as an inspiration for every other academic institution across Canada and around the world.
The students had to sign that they would not stage another protest like this for another year. And just like that, they're gone. Each university and each campus is very different, so it's unclear who's next or what's next for the others. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Oshawa.
Well, it's one thing to know how to surf, it's another to do it with your dog. We have that story coming up. A British man is dead and more than 24 others were injured after a Singapore Airlines flight hit severe turbulence over the Indian Ocean. The plane was forced to make an emergency landing in Bangkok after it suddenly dropped into an air pocket and hit rough air currents. CBC's Briar Stewart has more.
These were the moments after a Boeing 777 flying from London to Singapore was forced to make an emergency landing in Thailand. Some of the 211 passengers on board were carried off on stretchers. Others were triaged and treated on the tarmac of the airport after they were violently thrown around the plane when it hit severe turbulence.
It was instantaneous. It really was. And horrible.
Jerry was traveling with family to a wedding in Australia.
Went so sudden, there was no warning at all. And I ended up hitting my head on the ceiling, my wife did. Some poor people who were walking around ended up doing somersaults.
A 73-year-old British passenger died of a suspected heart attack. People not buckled in slammed into the overhead bins, denting some and causing oxygen masks to fall. The crew was serving breakfast at the time and was particularly vulnerable.
His seatbelt sign came on, and as soon as I saw him, I put my seatbelt on. And at that very moment, the plane just suddenly dropped. The thing I remember the most was just seeing objects and things flying through the air.
Passengers said the turbulence lasted seconds.
We do not know exactly what happened in this event.
Captain Shem Momquist has flown the 777 and is a safety investigator. He says in warm tropical places like Myanmar, where this plane hit severe turbulence, storms form differently than they do in places like North America and may not be visible to the pilots.
It is very likely that the storm will just not present itself at all on the radar, and the pilots will suddenly notice at the very last minute, hey, we have something in front of us.
Which is why he urges passengers to wear their seatbelt throughout a flight. Because while what happened is extremely rare, there may be little warning. An investigation is underway to determine what caused the plane to drop, but experts say that climate change is causing more turbulence. One group of researchers from the UK predict that in the coming decades, severe turbulence caused by changing jet streams could double or even triple. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
If you're wondering if 4 legs are better than 2 for surfing, then check this out. Dozens of dogs and their owners hit the beach in Spain over the weekend for the European Dog Surfing Championship. Balance and courage didn't appear to be an issue. The dogs seemed to have as much fun shredding the waves as their humans. The annual event promotes dog adoptions and discourages pet abandonment by showing off a fun way to bond with your pooch. A wet but worthy cause indeed, and I will say I don't think all dogs are cut out for this championship. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. And don't forget to watch The National tonight at 9 on CBC News Network, 10 p.m. on the CBC News app, CBC TV, and streaming on CBC Gem and CBC Explore. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.